client coming to you and saying, I really want my site to be built on this. And you being like, well, I've never done that before, but let's try it. It's like, it's going to take you so much time to learn the platform. Your profit margin is going to be abysmal. Like you kind of need to put your stake in the ground for a period of time. You don't have to stay there forever if you don't like it. But you should at least to commit to a handful of projects before you say, okay, yes, this is what I want to do, or I don't want to do.
Welcome to the Web Design Business Podcast with your host, Josh Hall, helping you build a web design business that gives you freedom and a lifestyle you love.
Hello, my friend. It's so good to have you here, and I am so excited to share with you my conversation with repeat guest, friend of the show, Chris Misterek. He is the guy behind one of the best brand names in web design, the self-made web designer. Darn him for naming that. So good. A little jealous. Great brand, great guy. And we are having just a very casual catch up in this one, but we do talk about some things that I think are really going to help you, whether you are in the beginning of your business or whether you're more advanced and established and want to get a feel for where things are in the view or from the lens of two people who have been in the industry for a while, which Chris and I have. We're getting into everything from where the industry is today with AI and everything else that's going on, what's different about getting started now versus when we got into the industry, and how more important than ever it is to stick to your tools and beware the shiny object syndrome. So with all that as a primer, I'll leave it at that. And I'm going to welcome in our good friend, Chris Misterek. He did have some technical issues. Heads up, if you watch this version on YouTube, you will see a camera change and either a freeze frame or a picture of Chris over that segment, depending on what me and my Nathan editor decide to do on that. So just a heads up on that. Go to the show notes of this episode, joshhall.co/394 for all the links we mentioned. And since you're on the podcast, be sure to go check out Chris's podcast, The Self-Made Web Designer. It's a good one. Here's Chris.
A little banter.
How long has it been? For real? It's been a couple years, right?
I think it was 2022. And so it's 2025 now. So maybe about 3 years or so.
Wow. Well, man, it's so good to see you again, dude. How are things? I mean, it looked like life had taken a lot of different turns over the past few years since we chatted last.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, things are really good, man. I still at ShowIt, still doing web design stuff. Just recently started Self-Made Web Designer back up again. And other than that, I have a senior in high school, which is nuts. I don't know how that's even possible, but here we are.
Yeah, because you're only 26. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So had her when I was like 11. So all good.
So wild, man. Gosh, Chris, that's crazy. Well, I'm pumped to reconnect with you here, man. Just wanted to kind of get the lay of the land on where you're at. I mean, I have to say, damn you, Chris, for stealing the best freaking podcast name. Like, I remember when I saw your stuff, I was like, dang it. That is what I wanted to call my podcast. That's so much better than mine.
Wow. Thank you, man. Yeah,
it's just such a good brand. I'm so glad you're back, man. The Self-Made Web Designer is back.
Yeah. It was quite a long hiatus. I think it was 2 years in total. Had a whole bunch of stuff happen in my family. My dad passed away and just got kind of overwhelmed and burnt out. And so just took some time off to kind of get healthy and emotionally, physically, all that stuff, focus on my family. And then slowly but surely, like, I actually found a love for writing again.
Because you came back with your newsletter first, right?
Yeah. So I started writing and blogging. And, I was like, well, I'm doing this. I might as well, make podcast scripts or the YouTube channel or whatever. And so, I just kind of slowly progressed into that, and then started YouTube back up this year, and then had a couple videos go off pretty well. And so now I'm just like, okay, well, how do we keep this going, I guess?
Yeah, because you're such a video guy. I remember, really looking up to you with your video when we first got connected. I was like, man, it's obvious you had a background in, video production and audio and sound and stuff. I actually didn't know you were as heavy into, or maybe, I don't know, was writing kind of secondary? And then, like you said, was it just a chance to get into it that was a little more low barrier, less production, less everything?
Yeah. I read a book from a gal named Anne Lamont called Bird by Bird. And it's a funny name, but she is essentially a writing teacher. So she teaches people how to write. She's done a few like creative novels, but really like the majority of her work has been around like how to write. And it was just super inspiring. And I was like, you know what? I think I want to do this. And so just started sitting down at a computer and just found a knack for like busting out 1,000 words in like 30 minutes, And so I was like, well, I think I can do this like every day. And so then I just started doing that every day. It became a pattern. And so, yeah. And so then that just kind of catapulted from there.
Was the initial writing for you, was it more like journaling, especially since you had gone through so much in the period of a couple of years, or was it intentional to like web designers, or how did the writing start?
Yeah, it was all about web design, but my style is much more like, okay, here's my story and here's the thing that I learned through this story as it relates to web design, because what I do with ShowIt is still web design stuff. Like I'm helping web designers that use our platform. And so it was just like, all right, well, like I need to produce content for these guys. So I'm going to blog. I'm going to write a newsletter for them. And then I was like, well, I've got more words that I could be writing. And so why don't I just do self-made web designer newsletter? And then why don't I blog if I've got all these words that I'm writing every week, So yeah, so it was kind of a progressive thing, but it was always like, heavy web design stuff.
Well, it's interesting because I remember, I think because I still am on your newsletter. I do know one thing about you, Chris, is that I know when you email, it's going to be heartfelt. It's not going to be a rushed crap, like just stay on schedule type thing, which is a good reminder, it's a good reminder that you like, what's the right term? Care trumps consistency, maybe. I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'd rather get less emails from you, but ones that are like, he put some heart into this.
Sure.
As much as I stick on schedule with stuff, there's some times where I'm like, maybe I want to start doing less, just better.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah. I intentionally try, like I don't like, cause you could find web design advice from a number of people, like either of us, you could be getting solid web design advice to build a solid web design business.
Or from ChatGPT now.
Yeah, 100%. And there's more and more people because of these great tools that we have at our fingertips that are just creating tons of content. But, nobody can steal your story. Nobody can steal the part of your business that makes you uniquely you. And so like that's one of the core competencies that I think a lot of web designers miss out on is like they try to create an image of what they think their clients want. And in doing so, they leave out a piece of themselves. And therefore it takes out that real core competency and it pulls the heart out of their business.
Did it make it easier to rebound from burnout and everything that you went through, with just the idea that it is more of like a story based, like heartfelt kind of thing versus like, okay, here's my revenue target. Here's my action plan. Did it make it easier to get back into it, knowing like you could just share what you're thinking, what you're feeling?
Yeah. It's always a moving landscape for me when it comes to like, what are my goals with this thing? Cause I have the luxury of having a really nice full-time job, that pays my bills and then some, takes care of me and my family. And so there is a little bit of like, well, if I'm going to be spending extra time on this, it needs to be justified by providing for my family, at the same time, like a lot of the reason why it was hard for me, back when I first started was because it did feel like such a content machine. It's just like, got to churn it out, got to put it out there. what's going to get the most clicks, what's going to get the most reads, what's going to get the most views, versus like, hey, let's just be a real person, and then whatever happens because I don't need this, and it's a reminder that I keep having to bring up to myself, because inevitably it's so easy, vanity metrics of like, how many views am I getting? How many people are following me on social media? When I think the more important thing and what I have to keep bringing myself back to is like, what's the end goal? Like what's the real purpose of this? And my wife and I are always having this conversation. And for me, at the end of it all is like, I just want to help people, like whatever that looks like to be an encouragement, to help you build your business, to know a little bit more about web design. And so if that's all the goal is, then mission accomplished. You know what I mean? We've created, like all this stuff that is super helpful, and I've gotten feedback, like, hey, this has really helped me. And so it's like, okay, like, so that big purpose is now taken care of. Now I can just have fun, now I can just figure out ways to be creative, express myself, help people maybe a little bit more,
That's a really good point. I feel like if you don't have a measurable goal, there's no sense in looking at measurable results.
Sure.
In the form of like vanity metrics or sales, because like that's not the goal. Now, if you eventually get to the point where you have a goal, or maybe there's like, parts of, maybe that's the broader mission, but then there's goals within the mission. That's when I feel like it's worthwhile doing that. But I do like that idea, just because I feel like, like for you, there's no sense of looking at vanity metrics or number of students or number of downloads when none of that is a goal. Like if you want to help people. So technically one person, you've won. That's the success.
100%. Yeah. And, again, like it's a moving target. It's super easy to get sucked into like feeling like you're not performing well enough, or you're not as good as all the other people who are also doing the same thing or whatever. When in reality, it's like you kind of have to take a step back from that and say, okay, at the end of the day, if I look back 10 years from now and try to measure my success, it's probably not going to be from the amount of money I made. It's going to be on the impact that I had on somebody's life, And so that's kind of the North Star for me. And it's tough to do marketing for that, and to be fair, like I'm a competitive person. Like I want to be the best in whatever the thing is that I'm doing. It's not like, it's like, well, we'll just put out whatever and see if it lands somewhere. It's like, no, I want to be intentional about what I'm doing. I just don't want that to be an all consuming goal that takes up tons of my brain space.
Well, and I mean, I'm so glad you mentioned your full-time role with ShowIt, because the reality is you do have constraints unless you want to work 90 hours a week. So my gosh, man, I have found this to be more and more of not an issue, but just a reminder to people who are building web design businesses on the side, or like I have a lot of Web Designer Pro members who are mompreneurs, and they're balancing having young kids or even teenagers. And they can only work about 15 or 20 hours a week. And I just, at this time of recording this, just did a mid-year check-in with everybody. And it's interesting how many conversations I've had with folks who are in a part-time position like you are with their web design business. But it's really easy to judge their success off of people who are beyond full-time in their roles. And you just can't do it. Like I love this reminder that if you're working 15 or 20 hours a week and you're making 50 or 60 grand, and that's fine for you and your family, you've won. Like you don't need to, I mean, if you want to go to 6 figures, awesome. We can get there without going too much more than, you could probably get there with a few tweaks without working more, but you don't need to if you don't need to. So yeah, I think now more than ever, I think that's, it's worth like banging that drum. There's no sense of like stacking ourselves and comparing ourselves and people who are in literal different positions and have different variables and have different working hours. And like, I know I have to personally be careful about looking at like other influencers and folks who don't have families. And it's like, well, 100%. You can travel a lot and do a lot of speaking and conferences and crank out more content because you don't have any kids to worry about taking up your time, and I don't mean it like that, but I just mean, you know what I mean? Comparison, 100%. Dangerous game.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of two-sided, like you don't want to stick your head in the sand. At the same time, you don't want to use false measurement criteria, I Teddy Roosevelt, God bless him, comparison is the thief of joy. I think comparison helps you know when you should audition for American Idol and when you shouldn't. And some people don't have that tool. Like they're just like, no, I'm the best there is. Like, actually, you shouldn't even be on the stage. But at the same time, like, you have to compare the right things to the right things. And the best thing to compare is yourself now versus a year ago. And so if you can look back and say, like, I did X projects, I made X amount of money, then like there's something to celebrate in that, And so learning what the wins are. And I even have to have a list of like here are some wins that, like, even though they're not the big things, like maybe it's not, I made $100,000. Maybe a client said they had one of the best experiences working with a web designer when they worked with me. For me, it's the comments I get on my videos where even if the video only gets, a certain amount of views, somebody says, hey, I was about to give up, but this video just gave me a lot of ideas to keep going. It's like, that's gold to me. That is a measurement of, like, the more I hear that, the more I'm like, I am on the right track.
So when to compare? It's a good topic. Like, you compare yourself to your former self, your progress. Absolutely. I do think it's worthwhile comparing, is in more of like market research for positioning. Like, if somebody wants to, because you and I are co-opetition, if somebody wants to teach web designers, it would be worthwhile comparing your skill sets and where you are compared to me and compared to you and compared to Agency Mavericks, compared to all the other folks who are teaching web designers in some capacity. So I agree. There is a time to compare, but I think it's really important not to like almost judge yourself in comparison, especially when there's a very, very different set of circumstances, time, goals,
100%,
etc.
Yeah. And I think too, it comes down to the comparison is not an evaluation of your worth as a person. And so, like, that's where it starts to get really tough when you're like, this person is better than me, so I must be a worse person, or I'm not as valued, or maybe I'm not as spectacular, right? Like that's where you can get, really, really burnt out from, this person is better, therefore I am a worse human being, but if you kind of have to put your thinker hat on and put your feelings to the side and say, no, these are just data points that's going to help me make a decision about where to focus my skills next. And so some of the things, it's like, especially for me, when I was thinking about the early days of starting courses, I looked at all your courses, like Josh has all these courses and they're fantastic. He's not talking about Upwork. I have a particular expertise in the field of Upwork. And so that's the course that I'm going to make, because I have something that's pretty unique to talk about it specifically to web designers. So that kind of helps you figure out, like, what's my secret sauce or the value proposition, my onlyness, that I can say only I have this ability or experience, expertise, whatever you want to call it. And so this makes me a much better fit for these types of people.
Such a good point, especially I think for web designers who are focused on local, like whether it's local SEO or their local market. It's very, very worthwhile taking this approach of like looking at your competition and viewing them as number one co-opetition. Like we can be friends. We don't need to be enemies. I don't need to steal clients from you and vice versa. But then, like you said, what's different about you? And this is where I see a lot of designers look around at other designers, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, I'm not near as good as this person, whether they're local or global, whatever. And it really, like, it is worthwhile, even though you may have overlap in services and stuff like that, there's always a unique selling proposition. There's always something unique about you. And it may be a personal thing. Maybe some clients just want to work with you because you're you and you have the exact same services as this big agency in town, but they're not you. Going back to your story attracts. If there's anything that attracts your tribe, your vibe attracts your tribe, it's a story. It's how you present yourself. I just had a call with one of my pro members, Whitney, who has a podcast herself, and she's very established. And I asked her, like, point blank, what was it about me that attracted you versus going to Agency Mavericks or somebody else? And she said it was like your style. Like you just seem like a stable, balanced entrepreneur. And she wanted a little more of like, she didn't want to hustle. She wanted more of that. So I realized like, yeah, I mean, I have the best in certain areas, but yeah, it's like your vibe truly does attract your tribe. Is that camera working there? I saw you went side camera.
I know it's my computer. It's not letting me switch in between. So let me see.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah. Sometimes the Riverside, I guess it's like every streaming platform. Sometimes it goes well, but hey, you look fine to me. Okay. We can see your stash. That's the most important.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah.
I was joking that before we hit record, like if something happens, you will make a hell of a cop. Just keep the stash ready. Plan B.
Yeah. I fear I would be like, too lenient, pull people over because they're speeding, I'm like, it's fine. We'll figure it out. Just don't do it again.
Cop. You would be the worst cop, Chris. Cause you'd be like, I just want to help you. I don't want to give you a ticket. They'd be like, Chris, exactly. He was going 95 and a 35. You have to give a ticket.
Right. Yeah. In talking about like competition. So what I do for ShowIt is I actually help our designers that use the ShowIt platform. So we've got a really big circle community. We also have a core group of designers we call the design partners. So they're people who have been vetted by us. They've been through the process of taking some of our courses. We've gotten client feedback about them. And so we actually take them on retreats a few times a year up to a cabin that the CEO owns. I'm actually there right now. So I was going to say,
it looked like you were in like a lake house or something, or a cabin.
So, and they just get together and they just share and they're like, hey, here's what's working well for me. Here's what's maybe a little bit too difficult right now. We do some workshops on like ShowIt stuff. I'll do a presentation. The CEO does a presentation. But it's amazing to see the people who come, who kind of hold things close to their chest. They're like, I don't want to give away my secrets because we're all trying to get the same clients. But by the end of the week, it's just like they're the most open people, because they've seen the value of sharing and being honest and being open. And this is what's working for me. And, like there's so much more to it than just the way the websites look that you build, or there's so much opportunity, with however many billions of people in the world, there's always going to be a need for a good web designer, despite what people are saying with AI and everything else that's happening. And it's certainly something to consider and think about and try to figure out again how you are going to stand out. But at the same time, it's like, man, there's just so much business opportunity and so many people who need unique things that there will never be a point where it's like, well, all the web designers are needed are being used by projects, and so good luck everybody else.
Yep, every single business owner and DIYer has they can build their own website now for sure, and they don't need any help with their copy or messaging. They're going to understand SEO with a ChatGPT prompt. They know user experience, and they can figure that out on their own now. Business owners don't need that. They don't need to figure out email is involved with domains and websites, and they've got it all. Yeah, there's no need for us. Yeah, I don't see that happening ever. No. I love that you're bringing this up, Chris, just because like I feel like we're our own worst enemy as creatives, especially with scarcity mindsets. And I understand these are interesting times economically and everything else. There may be different fluctuations of that, but that is always the case. But the reality is, like, I've just gone back this over and over. Most web designers don't need more than 25 to 50 clients to build a healthy big business, especially depending on your price points. How many businesses in the world are the like hundreds of millions business owners and people launching new businesses all the time. There is a scarcity of web designers, quite honestly, especially web designers who are not just pixel pushers, like folks who are like really and we take it a level back and say like web designers who actually care and give a crap. That's really, I've banged on that drum for years because that's how I got started, not having any expertise and very good design skills, quite honestly, is I really did care, and clients can sense that. So going back to like those intangibles, I feel like it's worthwhile really for everyone sitting down and thinking about your intangibles. Like where's my level of care? Where's my passions in this work? What do I do that I enjoy? What do I do that I want to help others with? What type of people do I like helping with? And my gosh, that could take you so far. There's no need for a scarcity mindset now more than ever. Yeah. I think the folks who have the opposite of that are the ones who are going to go really far, really fast.
Yeah. It's interesting. I actually, probably last fall got a fairly big client for myself. And it came down that it was between me and this like bigger agency. And so the client was talking with them and he sent me the agency's proposal and was like, hey, can you look at this and just tell me how you would be different and like if you would be able to deliver some of the things that they're talking about. And so as I was looking at their proposal, I was like, I feel like this is everything that I have said that I'm going to be doing for them. So what was the disconnect? Like, why did he feel like their proposal was so much stronger than mine that he would say, hey, can you level up to this? And so I realized it was the way that they were communicating about what they were delivering. And so we were both going to deliver probably close to the same level of quality of product, and we both showed like, here's our background. Here's the stuff that I have done. It was pretty similar, like there wasn't anything that's like, oh, this is drastically better than mine. But the difference that he felt was the way that they were presenting and communicating. And so that's when I realized like, all right, I need to figure out how to communicate in such a way that, a client is going to feel more secure in saying yes to me. And that's that intangible that you're talking about. And that's, I think that the more AI becomes prevalent in the work that we do, the thing that's going to help you stand out more, like people are going to want the human connection. They're going to want the interaction that you wouldn't be able to get from a computer.
Was that in the case of that agency proposal and the way they were communicating, was it specifically a level of personalization and like one-on-one contact with you? If you could drill down to exactly what the difference was in communication, what do you think that was?
Yeah. So some of it was they had like a slide deck presentation that they were kind of mapping out, like, here's some past examples, here's our framework. So they went really into the details of their process. And I had kind of touched on that in my calls with him, but there was never a point where I was like, all right, let's look at this together. Here's A, B, C, D. And this is exactly the path that I'm going to take you on to ensure success. And, here's the things that we're going to avoid so we don't get in any pitfalls. And so I had that. I just didn't have a systematized way of communicating that. And so it didn't feel like I'd put too much of the onus on the potential client to like figure that out as I'm just kind of spitballing on a Zoom call, And so, that was probably the biggest thing, was just how it was presented and communicated.
And so did he go forward with you or the agency? I'm sorry, did I miss that?
He ended up going forward with me. It was mainly price point, because I bet I was less than half of what they were asking for. But it was still like a really sizable project for me. I just don't have agency overhead that they did.
Gotcha. Yeah. I was wondering was it a level of personalization? I'm sure that helped too, though. Like, I don't know, would the agency have reviewed your proposal and really given a personalized one-on-one response? I don't know. Probably not. I would guess like maybe they would say they reviewed it, but if that's a perfect example of like, yes, you were lower in price and yes, there were deliverables that didn't require the extra overhead and everything that agency. It's a problem with agencies. And by the way, it's the hard part for agency is they're competing with folks who, if you can get stuff done with one or a very lean team, which is what I teach on, then yeah, why wouldn't you do that? And there's going to be more personalization, and you're not going to be just a number on a spreadsheet, and you don't need to pay for their, big holiday parties. That's a unique selling position for all freelancers and solopreneurs and small teams too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, there are clients. So I have had clients who've said, like, hey, we're also talking to an agency and they're going to give us a project manager. They're going to give us a designer. They're going to give us a developer, and it's just you. So how are you going to make up for all those differences? And so, like some people, especially bigger businesses, they have more money than they have resources and time. And so they'd rather spend more money to know that they don't have to have their hands as much in the project. But for a lot of people, it's like, a website might be one of the biggest expenses that they have over a given fiscal period. And so, like they're not able to spend, like 30, 40 grand on a new, really simple website, which is what most agencies are going to ask for just to have the conversation.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you my fix for that, which is have a team page that has collaborators, and they don't need to subcontract with you often. I mean, it's one thing I tell my Web Designer Pro members. I'm like, you automatically have a team when you join Web Designer Pro, because it could literally just be you. You could have never hired anyone else to help you. And you can say, if we have a really big project that we need other hands on that go far into DNS or far into e-commerce or far into memberships or whatever it is, I'm a part of the community, and it's a team of collaborators who can step in when needed. Like that's the quick solution for that I've found. And then once you do have a few contractors that you work with occasionally, then they're on your team page, and you just put, collaborates frequently or how often they help. But yeah, it's funny because the same thing I did in 2011 works today, probably even better. And that is to put your sweet spot on your website. I literally created a graphic that still works today. And it's this little graphic that says, I'm not a stressed out freelancer who does everything him or herself and can't answer an email within 3 days, but I'm not an agency where you're going to be treated like a number. I'm right in the middle, me and then a few other folks who work with me, or I have a team of collaborators. And that's still such a wonderful sweet spot that so many businesses want. It's a great point though, Chris, because there are times where you're like, yeah, look, you need an agency. You need like full blown, they're going to be really heavily involved in your business. Unless I'm going to work part-time for you, you need, departments of people to help you.
Sure.
But most freelancers aren't getting too many leads that are that robust, at least from my experience.
Yeah. And that's been my experience as well. And there's a lot of opportunity in that space, not to say that if you want to scale up to the agency level, that it's not worth the idea of the conversation, because that certainly is a place to be. Like sometimes agencies are able to put out better work because they have people who are really specified in their skill. So they have a brand designer, they have a motion designer, they have somebody who's doing things for UI and UX. Like they've got all these individual parts, but that's for a level that it's like, you're really trying to eke out just maybe 3% more value from this new thing. Like it doesn't need to drastically overhaul. It doesn't need to make a huge impact. It just needs to add maybe a few dollar signs to their budget.
How many, because you're a self-made web designer brand, I know you're a freedom-based, heartfelt business kind of guy. Like how many happy agency owners do you think you've met who have like a ton of departments and are truly like happy?
Yeah. I don't think that I've
met many. And I don't think that I've met a couple, but they've been much more owner focused from the get-go, and they like pretty intentionally, or at least they were at a point in their journey when they started an agency where they knew how to build a team and knew what worked for them. Really good example is a site called Studio One Design. I had their owner on there from Australia, And he's one of the very few like true agency owners that is like balanced and still loves what he does. But I haven't met many. They're mostly, especially now in 2025, we're seeing the remnants of like burned out agency owners. And man, the agency life is a brutal, hard life because yes, you may have marketing departments of folks, but I've seen it firsthand, the amount of churn that agencies deal with. And a client may get a marketing head director, they may get a developer, they may get a designer, and they may get a production assistant, but they may get like 2 or 3 new production assistants during their contract with them because they're churning people out so bad. So I'm just saying, I wouldn't envy the agency world at all.
Yeah,
right now.
For sure. Yeah. So a friend of mine, Mike Janda, he talks about how
I'm familiar with him. Yeah.
Yeah. He's talked about, like when he was running an agency, he had to have a Google sheet that listed out how long they could run, even if they didn't get another job starting today, just because it was so stressful. It was like, there's so many things that could go wrong. There's so many things that could happen. And so in order to sleep at night, he had to know, okay, we've got 6 months of runway before we really need to start worrying, or we've got a year of runway before we really need to start worrying. And so there's a way to mitigate that. There's a way to do it well. But I know that people that work for agencies, typically it's younger folks who don't have a lot of other responsibilities outside of their job. And so they don't need a lot of money and they can work. And it's always kind of talked about as a stepping stone. Like I got a lot of experience. I built my chops through doing agency work, and then I went out and did it myself. So I would agree. It's a tough world to play in. Of course there are folks who are doing it well, but it's going to have its own unique set of challenges.
Well, and even the folks who are doing it well, I wonder, this is where the idea of like comparing yourself to them, man, did I experience this when I started, becoming successful as a freelancer. I looked at some agencies in town. I felt so envious that they had a cool office downtown and like, man, should I do that? And what I've realized is like the true mission of what you want to do in your work, that trumps everything, because like, I didn't want to drive every day downtown and deal with traffic. I wanted to work from home. I didn't want the overhead. And they just had different missions and different levels of experience behind them. And I think a lot of agency owners probably, I would bet that a lot of them view their agency in creating something that's sellable or something that's an exit. I had a conversation back on the podcast not too long ago with Matt Gartland, who was the CEO of Smart Passive Income with Pat Flynn. And he said, when you start your business, you have to ask yourself, are you creating a job, a business, or an exit? And I really love that frame because it does put everything into perspective. Like there's nothing wrong with creating a freelance job for yourself. If that's what you want to do, at least even if it's, for a while, that's fine. Creating a business is very different than creating a freelancing job for yourself. And creating something that's going to be sellable by a certain time is very different than just creating a business. So yeah, I don't know. I just think that's really important because most agency owners are probably creating a business and an exit. No agency owner is like, I want to create a job for myself where I have to oversee 30 people and I have to work 90 hours a week. And I'm just going to love all these team meeting calls. I'm going to love hiring and firing. It's just going to be great. No, they're doing it because they want to build a business that they probably want to exit from in a certain amount of time without dying before they do it.
It's funny. I just did a workshop with a couple of designers in ShowIt about using white label designers. So there's the business owner who has a business. She probably works about 15 to 20 hours a week. Her other job is to be a stay-at-home mom. And so she does homeschooling with her kids. And the way that she's figured out how to make it work is by hiring people who are on her team, but they're not necessarily only working for her. And so, it's another opportunity where it's like you could actually scale, like you could take on more work if you had a few collaborators like you've talked about, or folks who it's like you've taken them through your processes. Obviously there's onboarding, there's a little bit of like working out the details of how the relationship is going to work and how you like to run your systems. But there's so much opportunity out there because there are folks who they'd rather not be face-to-face with the client. They just want to do the work and they're willing to take less money because they realize they're not going out there and getting the business.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think it leads to this like pulling the curtain back on the challenges of being an agency owner is I think where people get really scared to scale. The last course that I released last year was called Scale Your Way. And it's been really interesting to see people, the results they're getting from that course, but mostly the results have been a mindset shift in like being confident and comfortable to scale, but not be a stressed out agency. Because there really are a lot of ways to go about it. And that's one for sure, just having contractors and white labelers and not the stress of a full-time W-2 employee or multiple. There's also, I think, a self-awareness thing, like you mentioned there, Chris, which is know what you want to do. Like if you really hate development and troubleshooting, you can hire that out from day one, even if you're working part-time. You can absolutely get help with that. You can focus on the creative parts and the selling and where the client communication, or vice versa. Maybe you really like having hands in the coding and you really enjoy that aspect of things, but you dread going to a networking group. There's a lot of different ways to be able to get help on the sales part, or partnering with people as a white label person to do the development and the design that a lot of people like myself don't really want to do. So I think that's the cool thing about the world of freelance, solopreneurship, and I'll call it studio versus agency world, is there's just a lot more flexibility. And I don't want to derail anyone or speak badly about agencies as a whole. Like they're really, some people like it, but I think most, maybe just because we're in the freelance world primarily. And do you see that too, where people are afraid to become an agency? They're like, I don't want to scale. It just sounds horrible and so stressful.
Yeah. I think I see a lot of people who have tried dipping their toes into it and then it didn't go well right off the bat. And so they just kind of, scurried back to what felt safe. And so because it is a different part of your brain that you're teaching a new skill. It's not the web design. It's not the getting a client. Now you're overseeing people. You're learning how to communicate. Your
leadership.
All of those things. You're translating from the business owner to the person who's working on the project. Like a lot of times, those skills are something it's like we feel like we should just be good at from the very beginning, but it actually takes a lot of development. And you're not just going to be good at it right out the bat. So you've got to give yourself some runway, and you've got to say like, I'm going to try this for X number of times before I say this isn't the right season for me. So like I was working with a video editor for some of my YouTube stuff. And he was just like, hey, listen, like in order for us to know if this is going to work out, we really need to do like 3 videos together. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
That's genius.
Like number one, it gets you more business. And so that's kind of helpful for you. But number 2, like, yeah, the first one's going to be kind of rough, like you're learning how you're communicating, you're learning what gets missed or what needs to have some directed attention towards. Mm-hmm. And so but the more reps you get into those things, the easier it's going to be every single time.
That's a great point. And one thing that I teach in my course, Scale Your Way, and also have learned is when you dip your toe into scaling, and by scaling, I just mean like getting help to start. In most cases, web designers are just buried and they're like, I literally can't do all this. I need to get help at some capacity. Make it low risk and low pressure to start. Like, don't just hire somebody you meet on, we'll just say Upwork for now, as a designer, and then say, hey, here's a 20-page website. Here's our strategy call with the client. Here's our portfolio. Good luck. 99.9%, that's not going to go well. But if you give them like a page or a couple pages to build out based off of what you're doing, then it's a very low risk, low pressure kind of approach. One thing that I learned with Jonathan, who was my lead designer for a long time, was we started like that. I gave him like a section. Well, first I gave him like a part of a footer to work on. He did great on that. I gave him a section to work on, then gave him a page to work on, then gave him multiple pages to work on. And then I felt comfortable like, okay, he can absolutely build a whole site. And I was still doing strategy, initial calls, and overall creative director type stuff. But then we got to the point where like he became better than I was at designing. So I felt comfortable with just getting the project kicked off, and then it turned over to him. And it was literally, and then eventually he got involved with client communication. And that's how we rolled. So all that to say, like, start off low risk, low pressure. Don't put yourself in a position to blow up your business the first time you get a little bit of help.
Yeah,
it'll be a 100%. Lot more better experience. And that way, if it goes bad, it's like, okay, that page is terrible. Let's try one more. Yeah, not a good fit. I think we can. Yeah, we're just not a good fit.
Yeah. So
it's like with the video guy, that's probably a good, like, if you did 3 and it's like, okay, we didn't get it after 3, no harm.
Yeah.
Not a good 100%.
Fit. Yeah. And the two designers that did the workshop yesterday with me, one was the business owner and one was the white label designer. They say, just do a paid test project, where it's not even client facing, where, you're not asking for free work to be done, but like, hey, build me a hero section and here's the brief, and then I'll give you $500. I just want to see what you're going to come up with, just to see what your style is, like that can be another opportunity. And another one of their tips was like, don't try to do it when you're busy. Like, it's actually the worst time to do it when you feel slammed, because not only do you have to finish the project, but you also have to teach somebody how to help you finish the project. So it's like, it's kind of the worst moment.
Yeah, that was, I will say I got through it because I've notoriously publicly said I had 23 projects, and I was like, oh my God, I literally can't do it on my own anymore. Yeah. I didn't have a choice. I had to like jack up my rates or scale in some capacity. And I did make it through it, but yeah, man, do I wish I would have like just transparently, I wish I would have gone through my course to be prepared to scale before you even think you're ready to scale. At least know that way when you get to that point, like, okay, let me create an org chart. I bet most web designers don't have an org chart. So right now, visualize an org chart, or just Google org chart or ChatGPT an org chart. There's a CEO, there's a creative director, there's a salesperson, there's marketing, content creation, there's a designer, there's a developer, there's tech support, there's ongoing admin. Like, your face is in all of those spots right now. So as soon as you get to the point where you're somewhat busy, I would start to chip away at what you don't want to do. Yeah. Isn't that awesome, dude? Like, that's just so cool about this industry, is we really do. I don't know of another industry where you can have so much freedom outside of just your work time and stuff, but like in your business, you have the freedom. Like most people who get into like loans probably don't have that much flexibility with their work in loans. Like you probably have like stuff you got to follow all the time, but we can do whatever one of those roles we want to as our main role.
Yeah, for sure. And there's so many new different things to learn as you go too. Like that's honestly one of the reasons why I love web design. It's like, well, like web design in general is such a big idea. It's not just web development. It's not just UX, UI. Like, no, we're building things for the web. Well, what? Well, it could be an app. It could be a website. That could mean that you're a part of the development process. That could mean that you're a part of the design process. That mean you're a part of all of those things. You could be doing SEO, you could be doing strategy. And so, as much as, I get kicked back every once in a while on some of my content, like, web designers aren't web developers and vice versa. It's like, you might have to be fairly soon, like there's a day coming where a generalist is probably going to be more in demand than somebody who's really specific.
That's interesting. I haven't really thought about it like that. I mean, I've definitely seen, for my members in my little sphere in Web Designer Pro, a lot of the folks who are at a like six figure level either have just a lot of maintenance plans and have scaled up some sort of MRR or their services or a higher price point, or they are doing things like strategy and consultative services. They don't even necessarily need to be a digital marketing agency, but they're definitely positioned now more as a like trusted web guide, like a webmaster versus just somebody who's taking orders and making the logo bigger. That is what I recommend folks get to. Even if they're fairly new, you could still become a bit of a strategist and kind of a consultant who's, I mean, honestly, all web designers are doing some level of strategy and consultative services from day one. So
100%.
You might as well position yourself like that. I still like saying a web designer, because if you say you're a web designer, you will get clients. If you go to a networking group and do it consistently, you will get clients. Promise, guaranteed, 100% guaranteed. It opens doors. But that next level back, I've learned, and I think now, like to your point, I think now is that point where businesses do just want somebody who knows what the heck's going on the web. So
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, you don't need to do everything, but if you know your lanes and can do a few things well, particularly if it's just on the website, that's where the gold is.
Yeah. Nielsen put out an article just recently that talked about like the era of specialization being almost over, especially with the introduction of AI. It's just so much easier to know a lot of things about a lot of things. And so like, we have to be ready to say like, all right, what's the new skill that I can learn or add to the repertoire? And like you're talking about the people who are making, multiple six figures, they're hardly ever just designing the pages, unless they're just some kind of crazy good designer, which I've not even really seen somebody that is at that level who's just designing,
I think the case for that would be if they're working with brands that are making so much online that literally a call to action tweak may be worth tens of thousands or hundreds or millions of dollars. I think that's where like, some of the top level design folks get to, but I mean, those are few and far between. It is interesting your pushback towards the idea of a specialist, because I've heard so much of the opposite in that like folks are saying drill down into a specialty, go niche. And it definitely makes things more referable when it's like, yes, this person does this. But even the folks I think of who I'm utilizing and referring people to, they do a few different things. They may have like a lead specialty, but it's not their only specialty. So that I agree on for sure, where it's like, you got a few bags of tricks, but you've got main one that may be the primary lead source. But then when they use you for that, the work doesn't stop. You say, oh, shoot, you do this too, and you do this. Interesting. Awesome.
Yeah. Contrary to popular advice, I have never really niched down. And some of that is my brain. Like I have a hard time like really going deep for a very long time. Like are you
afraid of boredom too? You're afraid of getting bored?
100%. And so I just know a lot of things about a lot of things. And so it's like, I'm okay going like, all right, for 6 months, let's really get into SEO. And then for another 6 months, let's learn machine learning, because that sounds like something that is probably going to be important within this next decade, and so I've never had issues. Like, could I be making more money? Maybe, but maybe I'd be making less if I didn't necessarily niche down into what I'm doing. So I think the road that I've taken might take a little bit longer to get up there, like if you want to go
as a web designer.
Yeah, 100%. Like if you want to make a lot of money really quickly, yes, pick a niche, go hard into it, and then you'll get there. But if you're thinking about longevity over the long haul, like not necessarily niching down is maybe a good option for you.
I think it all goes back to what you want. And with niche, it's funny. It really is 50-50. It can absolutely work, and you can do it at scale, and it could be an easier sell because you know the clients, you know your target market, you know the messaging and everything. But you can also run into the risk that I've seen for people who want to go niche, where unless you're like so certain about who you want to serve, that is an unnecessary challenge you put on yourself. You absolutely can be a generalist. You are, so many Web Designer Pro members I oversee are, and a lot of them are very happy to just work with different types of businesses. You can always go like hybrid niche to where you have, maybe it's not like just chiropractors, but you serve healthcare or wellness. Wellness means you got yoga instructors, dietitians, nutritionists. So, you don't have to go like hyper niche. And I love that you said that, Chris, just because that is something that I'm trying to help people, or they're like, I got to pick a niche. I'm like, no, you don't. If you don't know your niche, don't pick a niche yet. Just do web design. I promise eventually you'll get to the point where like, okay, I like these types of people, but there's no pressure to niche,
however you say it.
Yeah. No, I like that. It's true. And to your situation, you're balancing full-time work for ShowIt, your freelance stuff, and your teaching, your passion stuff through I was going to say side-made web designer. That actually may be your true brand, but you are the self-made web designer. But you've got 3 different income streams technically. So there's no reason to put added pressure on yourself. I feel like when somebody has that kind of thing going on.
Yeah. And eventually, especially when I was first getting started, I just happened to be doing a lot of websites for people who were in personal training. And so it was like, okay, I could easily take this and say, I've done 4 or 5 websites for personal trainers. That's enough of a portfolio that I could say, I am the web designer for personal trainers. I didn't end up going that route because it's like, this is not really a niche I want to stay in, I like being able to help the personal trainer and the investment firm, and so, but you'll eventually start to see patterns in the types of clients that you're getting. You'll see patterns in the type of stuff you like doing. And a mix of that is a good opportunity. If you can say hey, I could see myself doing this type of website over and over again for the next however long, then maybe that's a good option. I could just never see myself doing that.
Well, that, and then also if you really commit to going niche and you're not 100% sure you're going to enjoy it or it's going to work, then a year or 2 in, if you're going to pivot, in a lot of ways, you don't need to completely start over, but you do need to redesign your website. Your current portfolio is not going to be the best example of who you want to serve now. So you got to you really have to expand your network in you got to have different marketing strategies. Pivoting a niche is a whole nother challenge. And that's something I really talked about, but I have seen to where it's I feel bad, but it's your current roster and client list and network is almost, I don't want to say useless, but it's not what you need to move forward. It's what got you here isn't going to get you there. And now you got to really start over again if you commit to a niche that you're not truly going to serve for the long haul.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do know people who have done that successfully. There's actually a ShowIt designer who, she burned her portfolio, so to speak, and took all of the websites that she had done off of her, case studies section, and then just made ideas out of thin air and made, test projects for her own concepts. And that's what she ended up showing on her website. And that actually turned her business around. So it's not that it's impossible. It's just it's better to have that conversation with yourself earlier in your business than it is to be 2 or 3 years in and be okay, I don't like anything that I'm doing.
Yeah. And the folks who I've seen who go niche really well generally come from that industry. Like Jason Gracia, who has a site called Swift Sites, super productized, probably one of the best examples of he's not even super niche because he serves coaches in different variety of coaching industries, but he came from that world of motivation and coaching, and he just knows those people really well, knows what they need, but it's broad enough to where it's not just, fitness coaches every site. And another pro member, Kristen, who was recently on the podcast, she comes from the speaking world and she just knows speakers, and they are coaches too, actually, a lot of them. And she loves serving them. And she's even trained her custom chat GPT to like she has a custom GPT about speaking websites and different content. And she loves it because she knows that industry. She loves the industry. She's a speaker herself. So I feel like that's when it's so clear of what you know, who you like to work with, that's the time to go niche. But yeah,
100%.
I just wonder, like, it pains me to see people like hang up their business or get delayed in starting or have so much struggles or unnecessary challenges when they're like, I got to go niche. I got to find my niche. I just don't agree. I totally agree, man. It's just like, just do enjoy web design first and figure out what you want to do within web design. Niche can come later.
100%. Yeah. I think that's solid advice.
The ShowIt, it's interesting. We are in a very, very, very interesting time with website builders. WordPress has a lot of drama going on around it. I mean, truly page builders are what's carrying WordPress and the community behind it. But Wix Studio is gaining momentum. There's ShowIt. There's Squarespace, which is still hanging on really strong. There's so many other platforms. I'm just kind of curious, like, what type of people are you seeing in ShowIt land? My VA Jen actually uses ShowIt. And I know people who use it really like it, just like I guess with any platform. But are you seeing agency owners with ShowIt? Is it freelancers? Is it more female driven than male driven? What are you seeing in ShowIt land?
Yeah, it's all of the above. And like we have design partners who have full-fledged agencies. We have site shops that are, doing millions of dollars just based on templates. So there's opportunity no matter what kind of web design business you're wanting to build. I would say, like, the thing that separates us from a lot of other website builders is, like, what you see within the ShowIt website builder is what it's going to look like on the web page, and it's much easier to move an image 3.5 pixels over to the right than it would be on a lot of other website builders, So, like, of course, all of them have their positives and negatives, and there are some great ones out there. And honestly, like, I would never tell somebody, like, ShowIt is the best and the only. It's like, no, like, if you want full creative freedom with a website, like, ShowIt is the platform for you. Because our mission is to cultivate the creativity that exists in every individual. And so, like, we are wanting to give you a tool to be more creative with how you're putting yourself online. So where Squarespace, you'd be able to get something up really quickly, but it's going to be tough making tweaks outside of the ability that they've given you, like they have. I have
heard that ShowIt seems to be a bit of a bridge in between, like, something like a Squarespace, but not as, like, robust as, like, a CRM like WordPress or something that is open source and, you can get very, very advanced into.
Well, and I would say, we integrate with WordPress. And so there are different tiers. Like, you have
I didn't know that.
One level that's just the ShowIt builder. So if you just want to create static pages, then we have, like, a multi-site option where you've got WordPress, but you can't add any of your own plugins. And then you've got the advanced blog, which is like, it's just like having a WordPress website. The difference is you design how you want your website to look and ShowIt, and then you connect specific WordPress pages to ShowIt. So, but I've created, like, really advanced custom post types and advanced custom fields, and obviously integrate with WooCommerce and all that kind of stuff to make some really fun stuff.
Interesting. I didn't realize that. So selfmadewebdesigner.com, is that ShowIt with WordPress integration?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
Gotcha.
So that's all very, very custom WordPress stuff connected to it. So, so a lot of people say it's like the missing link for WordPress because, there are some great WordPress builders, Divi being one of them, Elementor being another. ShowIt is just much easier to design how you would want it to look.
I was just gonna say that's the big struggle with WordPress that they have is it's just, I mean, they rose up in 2008, 9, 10, and a lot of the framework is still based off of those principles as far as like the literal dashboard of WordPress and the backend experience. It's very dated. It's very clunky. It's very disjointed in a lot of ways. So that's the challenge is like, I think anyone using the native dashboard of like Squarespace or ShowIt, it's going to be a lot more pleasing than going into the media in WordPress and, all the different aspects of that and going into the settings and the permalinks and everything else. So that's the challenge with WordPress that I don't know is going to be solved natively with WordPress. There are other tools that are coming out that are kind of filling those shoes, but I actually didn't realize to the extent of ShowIt, of how far ShowIt goes into that. So that's interesting. Good for me to know.
Yeah. So, to answer your questions, like there's all types of different designers that use our platform. We have leaned more towards a female audience. And that's not intentionally. It just seems to be like at the very beginning, we were the website builder for photographers. And so there are a lot of photography businesses that are female led, which is fantastic. And so we've just had a lot of folks that are female business owners that love using our platform. And
I found
over
that to
time,
be the case. Oh, sorry. But the CRM I use, 17 Hats, is the same way. It's largely female customer base, and they started in photography as well. Yeah, there's definitely, it makes sense. It just kind of comes with the territory.
Yeah. And over time, we kind of found that we had photographers as like an ideal customer avatar, but there was also the designer. And a lot of people were photographers who built their own website. And then other people were like, wow, your website's great. Can you do that for me? And so then they pivoted and built a web design business. And so that's kind of the other person that our platform is great for, is like, if you're wanting to, learn how to build websites and charge money for it, like it's a great platform for you.
This was not planned, by the way. This episode is sponsored by ShowIt. ShowIt is your all-in-one. Because I actually wasn't sure if you were still involved with that. So no, that's cool, man. It is one of those things where I really do feel for folks getting into web design now, because it's option overload. There's not a right or wrong solution. I really just recommend people play around with a few different things early on and see what they like. But man, I mean, tell me about like experienced web designer like yourself with, the public transparent ADHD that all web designers, I feel strongly have in some level. How do you not just derail yourself with like shiny new tool syndrome? Because that is another big problem of folks 5, 10 years, 15 years in. To be like, ooh, shiny new tool with this. Is this the best one to dive into?
Yeah. My encouragement to folks who are in that beginning phase is like, one, try out a lot of trial runs. Like most website builders are going to allow you to mess around with their stuff to a certain capacity for a short amount of time without having to pay anything. And then once you have a sense for like, I really like this one more than these, then stick to like 3 projects with it. So it goes back to the video editor advice, like stick to 3 projects and then evaluate, like, is this something that I am going to want to learn more about? And the answer might be yes. And so then you do another 3 projects and you just keep going until you have a little bit of an expertise in that. The answer might be no. And then you kind of pivot and try a different platform. The problem with like, a client coming to you and saying, I really want my site to be built on this, and you being like, well, I've never done that before, but let's try it, is like, it's going to take you so much time to learn the platform. Your profit margin is going to be abysmal. Like you kind of need to put your stake in the ground for a period of time. You don't have to stay there forever if you don't like it. But you should at least to commit to a handful of projects before you say, okay, yes, this is what I want to do, or I don't want to do, because as with anything, it's like you start looking at like, oh, look at all these other features that they just rolled out on Framer, or they just rolled out on Webflow. And it's like, all that stuff is great, you could probably be doing this stuff in the platform that you're currently using. Like, you just haven't really dug into it, And so, and that was one of the things that, like, I realized when I came on the ShowIt team is like, everybody told me like, hey, ShowIt's bad for animations. And I'm like, is it? Like, how do you know that? Is it just because you tell people it's bad? It's like, and so then I started looking into it. I'm like, oh, actually, we could do a lot of really cool stuff. And then I started showing people the different animations that I was creating. And it was like, how did you do that? I was like, it's just right there. There's no code. You don't even have to have code, but it's that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just say, you didn't have the, I guess the adventurous spirit to say, yeah, let's see if we can do this,
Sometimes you got to take your wife for a date.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got, you got to spice it up a little bit. Like, same thing with our tools. It is funny. It's like you use a tool for a while and then you just stop experimenting with it. It's going to start to sound creepy, but like 17 Hats, for example. I've been using 17 Hats for 10 years at this point. And there's a new tool called Moxie, which is a really nice CRM. A lot of my pro members are using it. Kind of caught fire. And then it came to it where 17 Hats sponsored our event. And then that gave me the opportunity to just like look at the platform. And there was like so many new things that I just wasn't paying attention to. I was like, oh my gosh, because I almost started using Moxie. I'm like, wait a minute, 17 Hats does that. And they do that. And they just added that. And like, there's a lot of new things. I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel bad that I haven't been talking about that in some of my courses and stuff, because I can absolutely do all this now too. So same thing with Divi and others. Like, yeah, I totally agree, man. To avoid shiny new object syndrome, don't bail on your current tool, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, squeeze the most juice you can out of your current tool before you 100%. Think I need a new model. Yeah.
Yeah.
And take your wife out on a date. Take your wife out on a date this week, everybody.
That's a great analogy. I actually just wrote a newsletter where I talked about, coming from the music world, which is where I was for a long time. Especially guitar players. It's all about the gear. Like, I just need a new pedal or a new guitar or a new amp. And I was actually at a conference where like this guitar player who's like one of the industry's best was doing a Q&A, and inevitably somebody asked like, hey, can you talk about your gear setup? Who was it? And he's like, his name is Lincoln Brewster. So he's definitely more in like the Christian space. Isn't as popular as much anymore. He's kind of gone off the scene a little bit, but he was just saying like, I just use one pedal. Like, I don't even have an amp. Like, it's a line 6 pedal and that's it. And then he said, it's not about the gear that you have. It's about how you use it. And I was like, wow, that'll preach, man. And that's
so good.
So true for like everybody in every industry, but especially in any type of tech world where it's like, if I just had a better computer, or if I just had a better camera to make better content, or if I just signed up for this new tool that's going to integrate with my website builder and do all these crazy fun things. It's like, hey, maybe just see what you can do with where you're at.
A tool is not going to save you.
100%.
That's it, man. That's such a good point, Chris. That is genius. It's funny, for the music world, you're totally right. I think that's probably the hardest for a guitarist, because even with drums, like, you could add more to drums as a drummer. I actually had that. I learned that mindset of like, I'm going to do as much as I can with these set of toms, these set of cymbals. And yeah, guitarists, I could see it's like, gotta get a new pedal, gotta get a new whatever, gotta get 3 new guitars, gotta get an 8-string, gotta get whatever it is. And it's, yeah, that's fascinating. That's such a good point. And singers have the easiest, because unless they're doing vocal effects, you just have a mic.
Yeah.
And maybe nobody better to learn from with that than a singer. Like, yeah, right. How can you get as much as you can out of what you got, which is your voice? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's great, man. I meant to ask you how you're doing on time. We can wrap this up here. I know you're at the retreat here, but yeah, no, all good. Sweet, man. Well, dude, great to catch up with you. I'm so glad to see you back on the scene. Like I said, your newsletter, that first one that just popped in my inbox, I was like, oh my gosh, Chris is back. I think I messaged you back, right? I was like, dude, good to good to see the self-made web designer is back.
Yeah,
so
thanks, man. No, it's good to be back.
Yeah, man. I love that you're doing it your way and you're just enjoying it, kind of written stuff is your podcast back?
It is. It's mainly the YouTube channel now. So it's YouTube that also has a podcast, whereas before it was podcasts that also had a YouTube. So we've reformatted it just a little bit, but
gotcha.
Yeah, so still running and gunning. And it's not like right now it's every 2 weeks or so. So it's not like a weekly thing. But we're still doing it and still loving it.
And is the YouTube self-made web designer?
Yeah.
It's the same brand.
Yeah. All the same thing across all channels.
Gotcha. Oh, 25K followers. Congrats, dude.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
I did see that you had a few videos that were like, oh, wow, way to go. The 3 skills. I remember seeing that one.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah. They just kind of popped off. I was like, I don't know. At first I started doing them and it wasn't getting anywhere. And then all of a sudden it just hockey sticked. And I was like, oh, okay, wow, this is fun.
Yeah, man. What's next, do you think, for self-made then? Do you have an idea of like, your funnel? Is it the Upwork course? Are you thinking membership one day? What's next for you?
Yeah. Part of it is like self-made is kind of an arm of Upwork ShowIt. And so I use a little bit
partner with you working with them, right?
Yeah. So they I don't get paid extra because of my channel that I do on the side. But ShowIt has the designer community, which I oversee. And that's really, I love the designer community and love that it's growing and can help people out. So I'm always trying to, kind of bridge the gap between those two things.
We need to have a unrecorded talk about this, or maybe a different episode. Cause I feel like ShowIt could boost tremendously with you doing the self-made resources that lead into ShowIt community, or have courses about Upwork. And then when people want to build websites and get clients on Upwork, what do they use? Chris uses ShowIt. Here's how we do it. Yeah. I know. Are you familiar with Brad Hussey?
Yeah. He and I are good friends.
Yeah, I thought so. You guys both have great stashes too. Maybe one day I'll join the stash. Although I wore a fake one for our in-person event. We did a mock-up sales call with my friend Jason, who I mentioned, and I had a stash as his potential client. And I've never looked more like a cop. I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, yeah. So I don't know, Chris, maybe. But all that to say, I know Brad does that with Wix Studio. Like, he has his community, but his brand partner is Wix Studio. I might need to talk to Divi here. Anywho, yeah. Exciting times, man. Exciting, even like the influencer coaching world, there's so many exciting opportunities too. So
absolutely. Yeah.
It's ahead, man.
A lot of fun and a lot of uncertainty, but a lot of opportunity all at the same time.
Heck yeah, Chris. Well, great catching up, dude. Thank you as always for your transparency and wisdom to this point. And man, I'm excited to see where self-made web designer goes.
Yeah. Thanks, Josh. Appreciate you having me on.
Big thanks to Chris for coming on and again, sharing some transparency about where he's at in web design and some of his journey. I know a lot of that related to me, and I'm sure related to you as well. Again, show notes for this episode are going to be found at joshhall.co/394. You can check Chris out at theselfmadewebdesigner.com. That is also the name of his podcast. God, such a good name. Darn, the good branding choices he made before I did. So go check that out. Connect with Chris. Let him know you heard him on the podcast. Wish him well. And I feel like there was something else I was going to say. It'll probably hit me right as I stop recording. So until then, I don't know. I'll follow up and make a note on it over at joshhall.co/394. Cheers, my friend.